to another Just 5 Mins, and on this time around we've got really some one Docker extension, but it's probably going to be a little bit of a series if you're using Docker. If you don't know what Docker is, I think I did an episode. I'll put the link in the show notes to one from ages ago, but it's a way of containerizing applications. We won't go into it right now, but really what I want to talk about is an extension I found that if you are using Docker and multiple containers and images and things, then you may, not always, and it is a little bit overkill if you're just doing basic stuff, you may need to use something like an orchestrator like Kubernetes. Okay, so Kubernetes, long history. There's a great video and blog article by ByteByteGo is the website. Alex Yu, I think it is, and I'll put that in the link. So if you really want I think more of a professional view of what Kubernetes is, then that'll do it. But in brief, really, I suppose Kubernetes cluster. So from that, you can probably gather that if you've got a system with multiple containers, so multiple parts of the applications, microservices, whatever it might be, then you basically have a set of worker machine called nodes. Okay, they then can run containerized applications. Every cluster has got at least one worker node. If you haven't gathered, by the way, I'm reading this from the great article that ByteByteGo did, but it's still relevant. It still hopefully gets your attention. But the worker nodes then host pods, which are the individual low level, if you like, part of the Kubernetes cluster. So you might have pod 1 with a couple of containers, and the whole point of this is that if one falls over, another one will automatically pick up. You can have multiple pods in essentially a worker node. But anyway, there's a lot of good stuff about it, but it's fairly intense, and really realistically, unless you're building some larger scale applications, microservice architectures, you may not ever need it. But if you do, then it's not necessarily rocket science or that complex, but there are a few moving parts to work with. And I came across actually the other day in Docker Desktop, actually. Again, I'll put the links below, but Docker Desktop you can run on all the main OSs. That's where you can create your images that then you can have runtime containers from those images. But again, I started to look, I was building a few containers, try my hand at some microservice stuff. So I had 5 or 6 different containers. I thought, okay, how would this scale? So if one of these containers fell over for whatever reason, what would happen? What could I do? And of course, there is Kubernetes. There's lots of other orchestration tools out there, but Kubernetes has got quite a big sort of presence in that area. Anyway, for a little while now, Docker has been providing extensions, and one of those extensions is called Harpoon, which I think is a little bit harsh considering the Docker icon is a whale, so figure that one. But anyway, it basically means you can pull together your Kubernetes orchestration visually. It's got a really nice little visual designer that you can pull together to build up the Kubernetes sort of infrastructure. So again, it's not difficult to do it manually. There's a lot of like YAML, if you've ever come across that, or configuration at the code level, basically. But what this aims to do is give you a nice visual designer to build that Kubernetes cluster. And I think it's definitely worth a look. It is actually free. I believe it's free for one sort of project. Okay, so one scenario, which, let's face it, for if you're just like myself, just independent, just playing about, developing a few little bits here and there, great. But they do have plans which you can go and check out yourself. I'll put the links below. But yeah, certainly if you do get to a point where you want to try Kubernetes, then from the Docker perspective, and certainly Docker Desktop with the extension, the Harpoon extension is really worth a look. So that's what I've got this time around, and we'll catch you on the next one.